All right. Yes. Okay, let's begin. Today's class is essentially going to depend upon what we did yesterday. We did very simple things wherein we tried to understand what exactly this electromagnetic radiation and radiation is, and uh, why do we call it a spectrum, because there are uh, different types of radiations that makes up the entire spectrum, that is solar radiation. Some of them we are sensitive to, some of them we don't see. Okay, for example, we don't see near infrared, we don't see microwave, we don't see radio waves, but we do see only the visible spectrum, which spans a very small portion of the huge electromagnetic spectrum. We also started with the fourth part of this first unit, that is fundamentals of remote sensing, wherein we also saw different types of scattering, that is selective scattering and non-selective scattering. In selective scattering, we have Rayleigh scattering and Bayer scattering, where the particle size and the wavelength of the spectrum that is interacting with this particular particle matters most. So we have Rayleigh scattering, where the particle size is small as compared to that of the wavelength of the radiation which is intercepting it, and hence scattering. So that is Rayleigh scattering. Then we talked about two types of Mie scattering. One was selective kind and the other was non-selective one. In the selective Mie scattering, we saw that the wavelength of the radiation, wavelength of the energy, was same as that of the particle with which it was interacting. So that was leading to Mie scattering. The non-selective kind is wherein you have a large particle that is capable of scattering different types of radiations. So these were the three things that we saw. Today we are going to move one step ahead. We are going to move rather we are going to take 2-3 steps wherein we will learn how this electromagnetic radiation interacts with the atmosphere. There are two processes. One is scattering, and the other one is absorption. Okay, so remember these processes. What are those? Reflection, absorption, transmission, that is refraction. Some of us I think use this word refraction or transmission, and then absorption and emission. So these five processes you have to know. These are the five processes that are occurring, because of which remote sensing becomes possible. If there comes any problem, then it comes because of these five processes, one of these five processes, and then we have to filter it out such that okay, yes, so I got a thumbs down. Let me repeat it. So we have five different processes that are happening. Which are those? One is reflection, then is scattering, okay, then comes absorption, then comes transmission or refraction, and last is emission. So these are the five processes that are occurring when electromagnetic radiation interacts with the atmosphere or with the earth's surface, where many different types of objects are lying. Okay, these are the five processes. So we are learning these processes. When it comes to atmosphere, we are learning these two important processes. One is scattering, reflection, and absorption. These three processes. And then when it comes to the planet's surface, there we are adding one more process to it, which is emission. Okay, keep this in mind. But don't worry, even if you did not understand it, we are going to discuss this now. So the first process was scattering. Now we are going to talk about absorption in atmosphere. So now, of all the radiation that comes and interacts with the atmosphere, that tries to traverse through the atmosphere such that it comes towards the planet's surface, everything doesn't reach the planet's surface. We know about ultraviolet radiation that completely gets absorbed at the ozone layer. Then we know cosmic rays, gamma rays, X rays. What is happening with them? They are completely getting reflected off back into the outer space. So we are going to talk about absorption now. So whenever you have these gases, aerosols, you have water vapor that is suspended in the atmosphere, some of it will absorb the energy that falls onto them. Okay, wherever the optical thickness of the atmosphere is dense, that means there is a dense concentration of water vapor or dust, or aerosol is there, a lot of emissions are coming in there, for example carbon dioxide and things like that. What will happen? Any energy, any solar energy that comes and interacts with this dense layer of atmosphere, the dense layer will trap it there itself. Okay, will trap it there itself and absorb it. When it absorbs it, you will see that the temperature of the atmosphere rises. Okay, temperature of the atmosphere rises. So all the energy is absorbed and stored. After some time, it has to be dissipated. That means it has to be let go of. Now, when it dissipates, it is essentially going to dissipate in a longer wavelength, which means that if the incoming solar energy was of specific wavelength, then after its absorption, when that energy has to be dissipated, released back, that time the wavelength of such energy is always going to jump higher, will always be higher. Okay, which means that when it absorbs any radiation, it could be short wave radiation, it could be visible, or it could be ultraviolet, it could be near infrared or anything of that sort. But when it releases it all, it is always going to be thermal infrared, which means higher wavelength. So we have near infrared, we have mid infrared, far infrared, or thermal infrared. Thermal infrared is highest temperature carrying infrared radiation. So whenever you see any energy being absorbed, it is essentially short wave radiation, and when it is released back, emitted back after initial absorption, it is always going to carry more heat, such that what will happen? Whatever that object, let's say a cloud, a dust cloud that had absorbed all this energy, became heated, and then to release it, it released all this heat which lies in the higher temperature higher temperature radiation, which is long wave radiation. Are you following this? The other day, I think on the first class, I told you that you have to mug it up. Incoming radiation is short wave radiation, outgoing is long wave radiation. Okay, have you understood this? Give me a thumbs up if you have understood this. This is never going to change. Absorb, what energy is absorbed is at lower wavelength, what is released is always at longer wavelength. So short wavelength, so you see this diagram here, there is some object here. Okay, some object here, and then incoming radiation is short wave radiation, that is short wavelength radiation. It is absorbed, and when it is released back, you will see the wavelength of the energy has increased. Outgoing is always long wave radiation. Okay, this you keep in mind. Incoming is short wave, outgoing is long wave radiation. So these main gases which are responsible for this absorption, no, we have talked about this. Water vapor absorbs all the infrared radiation, anything, any radiation that carries heat, it will completely absorb it. That reminds me that I have to show you one more picture. Something that we were talking about yesterday. I don't remember who exactly was asking. Maybe Miss Prabodhini was asking that what will happen if we are looking at snow cover or glacier cover in infrared. So we were talking about how any colder object will completely absorb these heat waves, and that is exactly what is happening. So you see here, these are the snow covered peaks of mountains, and this is the infrared picture of it. So wherever that there is snow cover, for example, you see this glacier valley, it's the same one that is over here. You see it black in color. Okay, which means discriminating this highly reflective um, snow here becomes more conspicuous. You are able to demarcate it much more easier as compared to rather using a true color image like that of a Google satellite image, because there could be some rocks which are also white in color, and then they will usually, will get a little confused about whether this is really snow or some rock cover of that is some white rock, maybe like that of granite, a leuco rock or something like that. But with this it becomes much more clearer. You are able to identify the colder objects, okay, because they completely absorb infrared radiation. Okay, now coming back to here, so there are these various gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, ozone. Ozone will absorb ultraviolet radiation. Carbon dioxide will absorb most of the microwave and most of the long wave radiation that is going back into the outer space. We will look into this a little more closely so that we understand this greenhouse gas effect. Okay, and then water vapor, we know it absorbs all the infrared radiation, whatever radiation that carries heat, it completely absorbs. So absorption is wavelength dependent. Okay, what kind of radiation will be absorbed, it all depends upon the wavelength of that radiation. And uh, different gases absorb energy at specific parts of spectrum. For example, how we saw that water vapor will absorb infrared radiation, but it is not absorbing visible spectrum. Okay, like that. So different objects or different uh, components will absorb different parts of that electromagnetic spectrum. Everything is not going to be absorbed equally. At least in different proportion it will be absorbed. So different gases absorb energy at specific parts of the spectrum rather than uniformly. Okay. So for example, we were talking about vegetation, how it absorbs infrared radiation less as compared to that of red. Red, it absorbs more. When it is green, healthy, flourishing vegetation, it absorbs red radiation more. That is why nothing of red leaves from that vegetation, because if it was to leave, we would have perceived red color and we would have seen that vegetation is red. But the same thing happens when it loses its chlorophyll. When leaves start withering, right, when they dry out, they turn yellow, then they turn red. So you see that shift in reflection happens. So earlier when it was healthy green, chlorophyll content was present, green was reflected, red was absorbed, and that is why you would see green color vegetation. But then with time, as these leaves start withering, what is happening, it starts releasing or reflecting red and absorbing green. So dying vegetation absorbs green, okay, and red it reflects. So that shift in absorption we see. Have you understood this? Because I told you something is a little out of, did you understand this? A green flourishing vegetation will reflect green, absorb red. Okay, and that is why, because what is reflected back, it comes to our eyes and we perceive it as green. But when this vegetation starts drying out, chlorophyll content starts reducing, then what is happening, that is when you will start seeing that the vegetation starts becoming yellow. So leaf color changes to yellow, and then eventually it shifts to red. Okay, all right. So here again, let's come to this particular diagram, which is very comprehensive. You will not um, have anything that is missed out from this diagram. There is sun shining bright. It is sending energy towards our planet, but our planet is not homogeneous. So within the atmosphere, we have clouds. So some radiation comes, falls on this cloud, and then it gets reflected back towards the space. Okay, so there is reflection happening. If this cloud is white in color, that is how you perceive it. If it is white in color, that means it is more of dust. And what is happening, almost every light that falls upon it reflects back towards the space. Some of it could also be reflecting back towards the surface, that is also there. So it bounces off, goes towards the surface. That is why you are able to see these white clouds from the ground as well. Okay, it's all about the slope. What is the angle at which this radiation was incident upon the cloud or any object? All right. So cloud, what will happen, some of it will be reflected back into the outer space. At times it will also back or some part of it will also reflect back towards the surface. Now, at the same time, what is also happening is that at this cloud surface, because it has different slope, no, it is irregular. Cloud doesn't have a specific shape. What is happening because of this changing slope is that the reflecting radiation as well seems to be reflecting in different direction. It is not reflecting in just one direction like how mirrors will reflect, because everywhere the slope is same, but here the slope is different. So what happens, the angle of reflection is varying, and that is what we call scattering. So incident radiation, when it falls upon any object, depending upon what is the how is the surface of this particular object, whether it is smooth or whether it is rough, irregular, then it will determine what kind of scattering is happening, whether it is getting reflected uniformly in one direction or whether there is some change, that is change in the reflection angle. When there is change in reflection angle, that is the time we understand that the object is irregular. Okay, are you understanding what I'm telling you? Give me a thumbs up if you're still with me while I'm talking all this and you're understanding. Okay, so if you have not understood this, let's talk a little more. Okay, so this scattered radiation, you see, this scattered radiation, some of it comes back towards the surface, where what is happening? Once it interacts with the surface, then as well it is reflecting back. Okay, so radiation comes, it falls onto some cloud midway into the atmosphere, gets scattered, gets reflected, and then some part of it also comes, whatever is scattered, also some part of it comes towards the surface, where again there is a reflection. Yes, we will talk about the irregular surface in a little different manner now. Okay, so out of all this radiation that has scattered, so some of you are jumping in. Okay, so some of this which is scattered again is directed back towards the surface, from where again it will be reflected back towards the sensor, and whatever energy has been received at the sensor will be captured. Then you have one direct radiation that transmits directly without interacting with anything else in between. It comes towards the planet's surface and then goes back also completely unhindered. You see this particular arrow directly comes towards the surface, and from there it gets reflected back towards the sensor. Okay, so this is that radiation which is lying within the atmospheric window. I hope you remember the concept of atmospheric window, which speaks about how for a certain kind of radiation, the entire atmosphere acts like that of a window, completely transparent. It is allowed to come in, it is allowed to escape without interacting with the atmosphere at all and without changing its intensity. So that is atmospheric window. So this ray that you see directly coming and interacting, reflecting here at the surface and going back to the sensor without getting hindered, this is what we call atmospheric window. Whereas here what is happening, this radiation is not, it is getting hampered. Then you see another ray that comes and ends midway itself in the atmosphere itself. What is happening, some gases are able to absorb this certain kind of energies completely, such that nothing goes, nothing gets scattered, nothing gets reflected, everything gets absorbed, nothing comes towards the surface. Okay, so when it is absorbed, what is going to happen, here the temperature of the atmosphere will rise, and then at night when there is no solar radiation, that is no more radiation is absorbed, what is going to happen, that heat will be lost. Okay, and how will it be lost, it will be radiated back, it will be emitted, it will be emitted in the long wave radiation. So incoming was short wave and outgoing will be what is that, will be a long wave. Okay, now there is another radiation that comes, it gets scattered only, not really getting reflected only, but it is getting scattered, and from the atmosphere itself without coming towards the surface, it goes back to the sensor. So these are the four pathways that we have to remember. What are those four pathways? One is this atmospheric window. Okay, this is the atmospheric window. Nothing, no, this radiation doesn't interact with the atmosphere at all, completely unhindered. Then some radiation interacts with the atmospheric components, and some scattered and reflected radiation indirectly comes towards the surface, from where it will get reflected back. And then you have some radiation that never comes towards the surface, completely gets absorbed, and later it will emit some radiation just to cool itself down. And then you have the fourth pathway, wherein at the top of the atmosphere itself it is scattered, goes to the sensor without coming towards the planet's surface. Okay, so you have two kinds of radiation that is coming towards the surface, one which is directly transmitted, and the other which is scattered and reflected from the atmospheric components, like that of clouds. There are other things also, like it could also be some gaseous cloud, some emitted cloud, some uh, aerosol content and things like that. Now then we look at these arrows. So one we have covered in this atmospheric window itself. Then let's talk about this. So you see this atmospherically absorbed, completely absorbed radiation at night time, when there is no more solar radiation that is absorbed. What is happening to the atmosphere? It is trying to cool down, it is trying to release its heat. So as it releases its heat, that emitted energy in long wave radiation, which is essentially sensible heat, it goes to the sensor. Okay, so here you see something that was stored earlier being released, and then it comes to the sensor. Now come to here, where you see some radiation was also absorbed. So at night, again, the planet surface, the entire day the land is heating up, it is storing all that shortwave radiation. And at night, what is happening? You see cooling more. So that is the time you will see that this heated up land will start losing that heat. Okay, it loses it in long wave radiation, essentially thermal infrared radiation, and is a long wave radiation that again goes back to the sensor, and that is where they are sensed. Then you have some radiation at night, whatever this emission is taking place, no, some of it is midway absorbed completely by the atmosphere. This is what is greenhouse gas effect. So if there is carbon dioxide lying here, it will not only absorb the incoming solar radiation, but it will also absorb the outgoing long wave radiation, which gets released during the night time, or essentially it happens throughout the day, but at night time you see it more prominent, because there is no absorption, there is essentially emission, so that signature is more pure. Okay, and this is where you see greenhouse gas effect. So if all the radiation was to leave the planet's system, that is the atmospheric envelope, if it was completely to leave, no, then at night time we would have had around minus 15 degrees centigrade temperature, even at equator. Think about it. If these greenhouse gases were not there to trap these outgoing long wave radiation, everything would have escaped. All that energy would have escaped into the outer atmosphere, and what would have happened? Our temperature on the planet would have suddenly become minus 15 degrees centigrade, which is very horrible. We wouldn't want to imagine ourselves in that. But then if the concentration of these atmospheric gases, like that of carbon dioxide, which carbon dioxide or water vapor, no, which absorbs all this outgoing or any heat radiation, if it increases, then what is going to happen? There will be more trapping of heat, and hence the global warming effect. Okay, have you understood this part? We will talk about the regular surface, smooth surface, and irregular surface in the next. Have you understood this part? The pathways of radiation. Let me know if there is any question. Give me a thumbs down if you have not understood any part. Okay, so this is going to be important in the sense that we will end up talking a lot about this when we get into the processing part of remotely sensed data, and also then when it comes to handling these data into GIS software. Okay, is there any question pertaining to this diagram? Just have a look at the pathways that are taken by this radiation, both incoming as well as outgoing. You just remember that incoming radiation is always short wave radiation, outgoing is long wave. Okay. Okay, so this slide is going to be very, very interesting. We are going to spend a lot of time here and very interesting time here. Okay, we'll get to know different things. So, have a look at this corner picture first. I hope you are able to see the rays there, right? Is it legible? Smooth surface, rough surface. I hope you are able to read this. Able to read it, no? Okay, so see here, this surface is smooth. Okay, the surface is smooth. So what happens, the angle at which these all these radiations are getting reflected back is similar. Okay, the angle is same. So now we have all the rays coming to our eyes at the same time. If we imagine that we are observing from here, so whatever energy comes and gets reflected back from the smooth surface, everything enters our eyes at the same time. So we know that the distance is same. Okay, that means it is smooth. That means it is smooth. But then see here what is happening. This particular land surface is not smooth. It has ups and downs. This has ups and downs. It is irregular. So when incoming radiation, you see it has the same angle. But when it gets reflected back towards the observer's eyes, some of them will not reach the observer's eyes, and that is how we see shadow. For example, this ray, see, it comes and gets reflected back away. So let's say I am standing here, so I will not be able to see this part of it. That is why it will be hiding behind, isn't it? So if you are looking at a heel from one side, the other side you are not able to see. Why you are not able to see? Because the radiations are not reaching your eyes. But you place a mirror behind, and then what happens? This reflected radiation of the other side of the heel falls onto the mirror, and then you are able to see it. Think of that huge mirror that is being kept there, right? But then let's talk about something that otherwise happens. So we are standing here, and I'm not able to see this part because it is facing away. Its slope is facing away from the observer's eye. So any radiation that falls upon it, the reflection happens away from the observer's eyes. That is why we are not able to see it. Are you following this? But what is happening to those radiations that are coming towards me? They are coming with a lag. Not all of them are reaching at the same time. They are not perceived by my eyes. That is why I understand that some radiation takes longer to reach my eyes, whereas some takes the shortest path. Okay, and that is how I know that the surface is irregular. Now this is something very, very basic that we see every day. Otherwise, also we know that irregular surfaces will have varying reflection. The angle of reflection will be different. But when it comes to remote sensing, it is very, very important that we have an understanding of this very, very basic thing that otherwise, somebody who has not studied remote sensing might not know. Why it is important is because when we look at the satellite data, we are not really looking at a photographic image like how we otherwise see in a photograph, or while we are standing in the field and we are looking at a hill. The kind of information that we perceive is essentially pictorial. But when we are looking at remotely sensed data, what we are looking at is not pictorial. It might be put in a pictorial manner, that we learn when we talk about raster data and vector data types, but it is mathematical surface, which means what? It has different mathematical values, different values that are representing each and every region. And that is when this understanding becomes more important. Are you following what I'm telling you? Okay, all right. Okay, great. So to understand this, let's look at a bigger picture. Okay, so this is our planet. We all know that it is our planet is not having an upright um, axis of rotation. It is inclined at an angle of around 23 degrees centigrade. It is inclined. Okay, so our planet doesn't move like this. It doesn't rotate like this vertically, but it rotates like this. Okay, it rotates like this. I hope you could see me because I was showing you something. So if you were not looking at me at the other time, just see here. So if the planet is not, our planet is not rotating like this, it is not rotating like this, it is rotating at an angle. Okay, so that is why you will see that this particular angle of axis of rotation is also at an angle. It is not along this side. Okay, along the side of this particular screen. Okay, so now see, when the sun rays approach this planet at the equator as well, you always have these rays being received at a little angle, and those regions which receive direct sunlight, orthogonal sun rays, okay, taking the shortest path, is always a little shifted from that of the equator. Okay, so if the southern hemisphere is closer to the sun, like in this case you see that the southern hemisphere is closer to the sun, so you will see that region which receives direct insolation or direct sun rays, orthogonal sun rays, is slightly towards the south of the equator. Tell me if you have understood this. So it is not the equator that is receiving direct sun rays, orthogonal sun rays. When the southern hemisphere is closer to the is facing the sun, that is when you will see that direct sun rays are received at slightly south of the equator. Okay, have you understood this? Okay, now when the planet rotates, okay, and then the northern hemisphere summer appears, that is when you will start receiving direct sun rays, orthogonal sun rays, taking the shortest path onto the a little northward towards that of the equator. But on an average you will see that for half of the year, um, the southern side, a little southern side of the equator is receiving direct solar radiation, but later when the summer shifts to the northern hemisphere, that is the time what is happening, it is receiving rather indirect sun rays, so the temperature drops there. The equator is such a region, that is more or less always facing the sun. So though it is receiving not orthogonal sun rays all around the year, but the angle relatively remains very close to that of being orthogonal as compared to that of the tropical regions. Okay, both the tropical regions, north of equator and south of equator, have an understanding of this, because there the reflection is changing. That is what you need to know. Now if you have not understood this, don't worry about it, because we are going to talk a little more about this reflection when we look at these particular pictures. Okay, so we will talk about something called reflection at the earth's surface. We have discussed absorption, we have discussed scattering. Now we are going to discuss reflection. Okay, so the first picture that you see over here is a glacier picture. Okay, this area is completely covered by snow, covered by glacier. Now when you look at snow, no, it reflects back almost all parts of that white light. So you see them white. That means what? None of the colors of the Vibgyor colors are getting absorbed. Okay, none of them are getting absorbed, everything is getting reflected back. Okay, completely everything is getting reflected back, and that is why when all the seven components are perceived by our eyes, we see white color. You might have seen kids often make these mm, experiment during maybe science day, wherein they color all the color cardboard, a round cut cardboard with all the seven colors, and they rotate it so all the colors are seen within one fourth of a second, and because of which we are not able to see one independent color, but we see white color everything together. Okay, so the same thing happens with this as well. But then we saw the other picture as well, no, wherein the snow appears dark in color, but this has nothing to do with visible color. It has to do with the infrared radiation that is completely absorbed, nothing goes back to the sensor, hence snow appears to be non-existential to this infrared, and that is why it appears completely dark. Okay, that is infrared radiation is completely dark, a sensor becomes completely dark to these snow covers. Now there is this concept of albedo. What exactly is albedo? It is a degree of reflectance. Okay, albedo is degree of reflectance. It could be nearly perfect, complete reflection. That is when albedo will assume a value of 1. 1 means complete reflection. That is, it's a perfect reflector like that of snow, but snow has a reflection of 0.96, not really 1. Okay, you can also think of it in terms of percentage. So albedo can be talked in terms of degree of reflectance. It could be 10%, 20%, 30%, 100%, 0%. 100% reflection means 1. Okay, like that of snow, but near perfect reflector, 0.96 is its value. Have you understood this? Albedo, did you understand? Okay, so albedo is what? It is degree of reflectance, how much of the incident radiation reflects back. Okay, if 100% comes, 50% is absorbed, 50% is reflected. So albedo comes assumes a value of 0.5 or 50%. If whatever comes, everything is absorbed, like in case of this particular snow which is being looked at in infrared, then this is what? This is 0%. That means absolutely nothing is reflecting, everything is absorbed. Okay, now the next you are going to look at the same chemical formula H2O, but in frozen state. You see here, it is frozen here. Albedo is 0.96, nearly perfect reflector. Then when it melts, you see that the color of this water changes. You are looking at the ocean, the largest water body that is present on the planet surface. So this is ocean. Here what is happening? Though it has the same chemical composition, the physical attribute is different, right? Here snow is frozen, whereas here it is melt water. Okay, it is water. So what water does? Now this water starts reflecting lesser as compared to that of snow and absorbs more. Okay, so this albedo value reaches near to 0.36, near to 0.36 or 0.4. That means for 36 to 40% of the radiation only is reflecting. Everything else, that is around 60% or 64% of it, is getting absorbed. That means all that energy is stored by the water. Okay, by liquid H2O, that is water. Okay, but when it is solid, that is the time that it is reflecting. Okay, it's the same composition but physical attribute is different. Let me remind you one more thing that we were discussing the other day. Why while we are sensing any object that is present on the planet's surface, we are essentially interested in understanding its physical, chemical and biological characters. Any object that we are looking at, we want to understand it in these three fronts. Which are those? What is its physical attribute? What are its chemical specifications? And what is its biological content? These are the three things that we want to know. Okay, and that gives us the complete information about that particular object. So if you are looking at a lake which is completely devoid of any algal growth, any biomagnification, then you are looking at a clear water body. Okay, but if you are looking at a water body that has water hyacinth growing in it, or if it has a lot of algal bloom, the water starts appearing green. So you know that organically these two are different, chemically also they are different. In the first case lower BOD, in the second case higher BOD. Okay, So all these characters we would want to know about the object that we are looking at, and that itself is our agenda while we are looking at any object through a satellite data. So that is to do with only water. Component is same, H2O it is, but in different state, different physical state, and that is why it behaves differently to the incoming solar radiation. Now, coming to this forest, what is happening here? It seems to be lying somewhere in between these two. This is darker object, this is completely reflective object, and somewhere in between we have this. So this kind of components we have many. For example, here we are discussing forest. What forest does? It absorbs blue. Okay, it absorbs blue, it absorbs red color as well, and reflects in green. So that is why what it is not able to absorb completely, it reflects, throws it back. Okay, and that is what is perceived by our eyes, and we see forest as having green color. But slowly, if autumn approaches uh, in these subtropical regions and near polar regions, we will see this season of autumn. So what we will see, slowly this vegetation will start losing its chlorophyll content, and that is why you will see red flames all over the forest. That means what is happening? Winter is approaching or autumn has arrived. So what will happen? The reflectance will change. There will be a shift in reflectance from green towards yellow, and then orange, and then red towards that direction. That is high wavelength direction, low frequency direction. Okay, have you understood this? These three images, have you understood about the reflection? Okay, I am telling you simple things. I am, believe me, I am telling you simple things. If you understand this, you are able to look at the components that you are studying in much better way. Okay, so that will also tell you how to identify separate scanty vegetation from that of evergreen vegetation, or identify different species of vegetation, provided we have high resolution data sets and things like that. But this concept of reflectance and shift in reflectance from one wavelength to another is very important for you to have an understanding of, have an awareness of, so that you are able to apply it at different levels. Now, okay, moving to this particular image. So we are going in this direction. Okay, we are going in this direction. Let me tell you one more thing. What you see here is completely dried out soil. Okay, so what has happened? It was earlier carrying some water, perhaps to saturation level. That means if you were to squeeze, take this soil, squeeze it, it will release water. Okay, so it was so much saturated, and now it has lost its water. So it has come to near zero moisture content. Okay, near 0% of moisture content. So you will see it reflects very brilliantly. Okay, it reflects very brilliantly. So it has become a reflector. So slowly you add a little water to it. So this green arrow shows that we are adding water to it. Okay, so we add a little water to it. What is happening to the reflectance of this vegetation? What is happening to the albedo of this soil? Sorry, not vegetation. So here the soil is completely dry, indicates that maybe a drought condition is coming, and then slowly you receive some precipitation and some water is added to this soil. So what happens to the reflectance of this soil? It reduces. Slowly it starts now becoming more darker. We are talking everything to do with visible spectrum only. Okay, but have an understanding that there is infrared radiation as well. So in infrared radiation, this will appear brighter, this will appear darker. Similar is the case even in visible spectrum. While it is completely devoid of water, it appears brighter. You add a little water to it. What happens to the color of the soil? It keeps becoming darker and darker and darker. Okay, but when it completely is saturated, that means in this soil, no, we have pores. In this soil we have pores. These pores are partly occupied by air, partly occupied by water. Okay, if you keep adding water, all that air is expelled out, and that entire pore gets filled up with water, and that is what we call saturation point. That is also the definition of water table. when a pore space is completely filled up with water, that is when we call it a completely saturated um, horizon. Okay, so now we keep adding more and more water to it such that all the air gets expelled out and all the pore spaces are now occupied by water, so there are no more pore spaces to hold more water. And when it reaches its saturation point, the soil is at its darkest color. Okay, that means its albedo will be minimal to whatever extent it can come to. Now, if you add a little more water, pore spaces are already filled. So now on the top of this soil, a thin layer of this excess water will start showing up. And that is when you are seeing that this rough surface has turned into smoother surface. Are you understanding what I'm telling you? See here, rough surface, completely dry soil, high reflectance, high albedo. You keep adding a little water to it, the color starts becoming darker and darker and darker. And then when that soil gets completely saturated at its brim point, that is when you will see it as it has darkest, that is lowest albedo. And then if you add even a little more of water, no, that water starts showing up as a thin film of water layer on the soil, and now that will have a planar surface, smooth surface. Can you see that? Here rough surface, you add more water above saturation point, a thin layer of water appears that makes the surface smooth. Are you following this? Okay, any thumbs down? Any thumbs down? Are you following this? Okay. Now you're seeing that any incident radiation that falls upon it, it is now interacting with the smooth surface, which means now it will again become reflective. See, completely dry, reflective, completely saturated with a waterlogging kind of condition, you again see it as reflecting. Okay, again it started reflecting as a smooth surface. Only when it is below saturation point and above wilting point, what is wilting point of soil? It is a minimum moisture content that is stored by the soil. Beyond that, moisture cannot be removed from that soil. So above wilting point and below saturation point, you see in decrease in albedo, and as it reaches a saturation point, you will again start seeing that the reflectance increases because the surface becomes planar or smooth. Okay, this is in case of stagnant water. We are talking in terms of stagnant water, and we are looking at the visible spectrum. Okay, now, so albedo is a measure of reflectivity of a surface representing the fraction of solar radiation reflected back into space, usually measured on a scale from 0, that is total absorption, and 1, that is total reflection. This is to do with albedo. Let's open up for some questions. We have 7 minutes left. Is there any question? Take your time, drop your queries. Brishti, I hope your query got solved about the regular and irregular, smooth and irregular surfaces. All good? Are you follow? Have you followed this? Yes. Okay. So let's take up some questions. This is these are the things that will take you forward in understanding raster data. This you keep in mind. If this is understandable to you, we are good. There is nothing that can stop us. Maybe we might have to remind ourselves these things repeatedly, but besides that, everything falls in place. Okay, so this is the diagram wherein incoming radiation is essentially short wave, and then when it emits, after absorption, when it emits, it is going to emit in the long wave radiation. Okay, so incoming might not be what is that, heat carrying radiation, but once it is absorbed, it gets converted into long wave radiation. That means it is converted to heat. So here you are looking at the emissions at Earth's surface. You have 100% radiation that is coming from sun. Let's say 100% is coming. So 16% of it is getting scattered within the atmosphere. Okay, and then 50% of it is absorbed by the planet's surface. 4% of it is getting again scattered by the clouds, and then that 4% that gets scattered and gets absorbed by the clouds and other components in the atmosphere, it gets converted into a higher energy. So 20 components that is being again released back or emitted back into the outer space. So out of the 50% that interacts with the earth's surface, 4% is getting reflected back into the outer space, which means around 46% of it is absorbed. So here you see, right before entering the atmosphere, 6% of the total solar radiation completely gets reflected back into the outer space first itself, before it even enters the atmosphere. Then coming back here, so you have these 46 percent of the so incoming solar radiation that is absorbed, and then these clouds as well had absorbed and some was radiated back towards the surface. So you have more energy that is getting stored here, and while it leaves, you will see that 105, it is given this minus sign because that energy is going out. It is outgoing radiation. So of this outgoing radiation, you will see only 6 units are getting escaped, whereas 99 units are again getting absorbed by the atmosphere at night as well, keeping the atmosphere warm. If all this 105 was to escape, then we will see that the temperature drops to minus 15 degrees centigrade. Okay, every night that is happening. That means during day we will reach 32 degrees centigrade in Goa, and then at night we will have minus 15 degrees centigrade. So in that condition, nobody can survive. Then again, so here you see some radiation that is absorbed by the clouds. Around 38 of it goes back into the outer space, and you have 85% that is directed back towards the planet's surface, and there again it gets absorbed. Again, that same cycle of emission and things like that. Here you see the atmospheric gases are also releasing 26 units of this long wave radiation. Some of it gets directed towards the outer space, some of it goes again into absorption. So this multi pathways, you have to keep an understanding of this. Let's see if there's any question. What does the convergence points of spectral radiance signify in the graph? Mm, which convergent points are we talking about, Nishant? If you could mention which slide you are referring to, no, that will be great. Short wave and long wave graph. Okay, short wave and long wave graph. So here you see these two graphs you're talking about, the long wave and the incoming radiation, the green curve and this dotted mm, brown curve. You can answer me while I just tell you what about this convergence. So this is basically an overlap, which means the energy that falls between these two, okay, within this extent, between this brown curve and between this green curve, is that energy which also comes as incoming radiation, and also that it releases, gets released into comes in as shortwave radiation, and also into long wave radiation emission also it forms a part. So there's an overlap in the um, radiation, incoming as well as outgoing. Okay. No, it doesn't get to zero. It doesn't get to zero. So it's not during night time when there is no sun. Definitely there will be incoming will become zero, but outgoing will pick up. outgoing will pick up. That is long wave radiation, because the planet will lose its heat, whatever it stored. Atmosphere as well as the surface both will lose its heat, whatever it had stored in the morning, it will keep losing it at night. So loss is almost always there. Minimum emission happens earliest at the dawn. Okay, earliest at the dawn, when most of the emission has already taken place and incoming has not started as of then. Right before sunrise, we have least emission is there, but least emission. So if you have any queries, stay back, or um, we are not meeting on the weekend, that is Saturday and Sunday. We are not meeting during a full moon, or during a full moon. Again, we are not considering the reflection that is coming from the full moon into remote sensing. It will be very feeble to be sensed, right? There are some studies wherein people are looking at how the reflectance of moon changes, but that has nothing to do with studying the reflectance of moon surface. Rather, it has more to do with studying the optical depth of the atmosphere of the planet itself, because if the optical depth, that is a lot of greenhouse gases are present in the atmosphere, then the reflectance of moon will appear to be blurring. So there are such studies, however, has nothing to do with emissions as such. Okay, so let me stay back with you.